So, if you've been online in recent weeks, you have probably come across this girl's face. You've probably seen the say her name thing that's going around, yada yada yada. So, there's a little bit more to her death than what the Black Lives Matter movement has put out there. Rather that's intentional or not, it's really hard to tell with them. So essentially, what had happened was the police show up to serve this warrant. They've been under investigation for quite a while. There were some leaked documents that we're actually going to be going over. So they go to serve this warrant. According to a witness, the police did identify themselves. Now, during that time, they spent, according to witnesses, 30 to 45 seconds trying to get these people to open the door. There was a lot of commotion within the house, and it's unknown if they just didn't hear them, what the deal was with it, but they didn't respond to the police. So the police made entry. Well, I hate to break it to you, they're playing it by the book right there. They have a warrant, they have every right to make entry. So they go in the house, and Breonna Taylor, rather it be her ex-boyfriend or boyfriend, it really seems finicky on that one. It depends on the source, it seems. He shoots one of the officers in the leg because he's a genius. Once he shoots that officer in the leg, he signed Breonna Taylor's death warrant. That is point blank what happened. Her blood was actually on his hands, not the officer. So the officers, being that this guy just shot them, returned fire. Still playing it by the book. They're still justified in what they're doing. Supposedly, this guy had dodged the bullet, and unfortunately, Breonna Taylor wasn't fast enough, and I guess from what I've seen, she was standing next to him, and the police struck her. It's an unfortunate situation, but it really does boil down to the police were justified in return fire. It really sucks. I'm not saying that her death was something that should have happened. It absolutely should not have happened. So I'm not justifying the death. I am just justifying the fact that the police were right to return fire because this guy did shoot them. And of course, it's also unknown if the police were even aware that she was there. We don't know if the lights were on in the house at this point, or at least my platform hasn't found anything discussing that. But apparently there is a lawsuit. It looks like from what we were able to find, there's discussions of a settlement. So hopefully things will go full circle in that. But we wanted to look a little bit more into who Breonna Taylor was, on why the police were even there to begin with. And recently we came across a leaked document which was released to this site that we're at right now, the Tatum Report. So this leaked document has a lot of stuff in there. There are some things that are very questionable as far as Breonna Taylor goes. If you guys aren't aware, Breonna Taylor was an EMT. At the time that she was shot, it doesn't look like she was actually working as an EMT, though she was still in the medical field. It looked like she was, from what we found, she was doing something else, but she did have EMT training. So let's just hop right into this document. So this is the document that that is most commonly being shared. Now, there's a lot of other documents attached to this, and we're going to be going through quite a few of them. Now, the police had a very hardcore investigation going on, right down to putting GPS trackers on one of their vehicles. So this specific document is discussing a murder investigation that involved Breonna Taylor. A little bit of a rundown on that. There was an individual named Fernandez Bowman who was found dead in a rented car. The car rental was done by Breonna Taylor, so the police naturally were looking at her. Now, I had a discussion earlier with an individual that was trying to, that for whatever reason was trying to push this off as, well, she may not have known about it, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Fact of the matter is that the rental was in her name. That makes her reliable or liable for that car and anything that happens. So, like it or not, the police are going to look at her because of the fact that the rental was in her name, and this guy was just found shot in the car. So, she apparently had claimed that she didn't know who this guy was, but when you look at the report, at the very bottom it says, it is important to note that the homicide victim is the brother of Demarius Bowman, which is one of Jamarcus Glover's associates and has been arrested with Jamarcus Glover numerous times. So that is something to keep in mind, being that this guy was associated with Breonna Taylor. So it's kind of hard to believe that she, when they were dating, if for however long, 3 or 4 months, that she never came across this guy or much less ever heard of him. So we go on to, now this document here, I'm not going to lie, it's pretty hard to read, but thankfully they did add this one, which is kind of an explanation of the previous page. Now this here is from December 30th of last year. So you can see that 1st Division executed simultaneous search warrants and yada yada yada. Basically, they served a search warrant. Now, here's the thing to keep in mind. The evidence that they seized: 5 handguns, one of them being stolen. 3 long guns. If you don't know what that means, that's basically cop talk for... They had 3 rifles. 4.9 grams of crack cocaine. A lot of crack cocaine. 14.4 grams of marijuana. Okay, well, at least marijuana is the least of the problem. For some reason, they took 2 cell phones, so these phones were probably used for drug trafficking, selling, distribution, things of that nature, and assorted drug paraphernalia and surveillance systems. So that is what that warrant on December 30th is about. And of course, you got December 31st, where they kind of go a little bit more into that. We're not going to cover all of that information. It just kind of gives the explanation of things that happened, yada, yada, yada. I guess I'll go ahead and read some of it anyways. The place-based investigation PBI team selected their first microcell location with the parameters being yada, yada, yada. Who cares about the address, based on an increase in violent crimes reported in the area. Now, if you aren't aware, the police had already ruled that the house that Breonna Taylor was in was a trap house. If you don't know what a trap house is a location that sells illegal drugs, narcotics, etc., etc., etc. Street term for it is a trap house. So that's what a trap house is. One of these documents, you'll see the reference where they call it a trap house. So anyways, there's violent crimes in the area, aggravated assaults, and narcotics-related offenses. PBI detectives started to gather research within the designated area, such as calls for service, CFS, incident reports, and narcotics-related crime tips. That's common in an area where there's a trap house. I mean, unless you're in like an absolute ghetto neighborhood where drugs is just a daily part of life, people tend to start calling in. A lot of the call volume and narcotics-related crime tips led detectives to yada yada yada. Additionally, though, Physical surveillance detectives observed that vehicular and foot traffic had picked back up at yada yada yada. So that means that if they had stopped selling drugs for a however long, it means that they must have started selling them again. Sorry, I'm going to need a drink for this. No, it's not alcohol. It is the official drink of Dungeons and Dragons, or so I'm told. Alright, so on here you got some photographs, yada yada, and whatnot, yada yada, blah blah blah. You get the idea. The police were doing surveillance. So now we're in January 2nd of 2020. And this goes into more of the investigation. A lot of this is about the investigation. So, technical PBI team had LMPD's technical unit install a pole camera at intersections of yada yada yada. The reason I'm not reading the address is because YouTube is very finicky, even though the address is right there on this document. YouTube is being a total pain in my butt in that they continuously like to flag my videos. So I'm being very cautious on reading addresses. Alright, so where was I? Here we go. For a short period of time, which is indicative of narcotics trafficking. Oh, I skipped ahead. PBI detectives witnessed approximately 15 to 20 vehicles go to and from blah 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 for a short period of time, which is indicative of narcotics trafficking. Okay, so we know that it doesn't matter if you agree at this point that the shooting was justified. The one thing I think we can all agree on regarding Breonna Taylor was this girl got herself into something deep. And unfortunately, this girl wasn't going to escape this with her life. And this is a common thing that happens to young adults. They get themselves into these messes and they get in too deep. It's unfortunate. Honestly, prison would have been kind of harsh, but it would have been a lot better than what happened. So, we can, I think, all agree on that. So, when we go down here, I'm presuming that these photographs are taken from that camera footage that they took. Now, the person in this left photo here, I believe may possibly be Breonna Taylor. It's kind of hard to tell. The image is very small, and I would imagine if you're watching this video, it's even smaller. So, sorry about that. There's really no way for me to blow this up. I tried figuring out if there was a way to do this on a full screen. As you can see, there really is no way to do full screen. I tried to download it as a PDF. That way I could make it the size I wanted it. Sorry, guys. But that does look like it might be Breonna Taylor. I do know it is a female. That's about all I can make out on that image. So we got two different images here. One with a woman, one without. And I'm presuming that this is from the camera that the police had set up. So you may remember I mentioned Jamarcus Glover. Now this here is the transcript for the jail phone calls. Basically, this guy got himself arrested, and he was calling her. If you're ignorant to the jail system and the prison system, I'm going to tell you guys how this works. There is no expectation of privacy in the facilities. Sorry, you lose that right. Your cell is public domain for any officer that wants to go and ruin your day. Your phone calls are 100% monitored. They are always recorded, and you can guarantee Now, if you've pissed off enough officers, they're going to be listening. So there is no expectation of privacy, which is why they were able to include these recordings here. So if you're not familiar with how the jail system works and whatnot, I would imagine it's probably common knowledge that your phone calls are being recorded. I mean, I believe that when people call somebody outside the facility, I think there's an automated recording that actually informs the person that's receiving the call that the call could be recorded. I'm just going to tell you, it's not a could be, it is being recorded. I don't know why they put it in the recording. This call may be recorded. No, it's being recorded. Rather it be through the third-party system that the facility is using or the facility itself, or both, it's being recorded. So this is the transcript for the phone call. I'm really not going to go through all of this. If you guys want to read it, I will put a link in the description below where you guys can go through these documents as well. It is pretty annoying that it has Tatum Report on here, but that's okay. Though I wish they would have maybe put it off. Well, being that it's on the top, it says exclusive. I think that could have been fine, but instead of having it go right through all these words. So we got here at the end. This is why I believe that they were actually still dating. The whole I love you too, yada yada yada. Let me see if there's a date here. This is from 2020. Now, Jamarcus Glover, when we go back to this first document, went too far. Here we go. He was implicated as knowing this guy that was murdered. So we got this guy Fernandez Bowman that was murdered in a car that was rented by Breonna Taylor. So he apparently is the brother of Demarius Bowman, which is one of Jamarcus Glover's associates. So it's pretty much safe to say that Jamarcus Glover knew the victim. Being that the car was rented by Breonna Taylor, who apparently was, based on the context of the call, was dating Jamarcus Glover, we can assume that she either had knowledge of the murder, which is why the police were looking at her, or at bare minimum, had no knowledge of it and was irresponsible in allowing somebody else to use a rental car that she had rented. Either way, that's why the police are looking at her, is because there's this nice little connection between these people, and quite frankly, she had rented the car that this guy was killed in, and this guy that was murdered was associate or brother of somebody that associated with Jamarcus Glover. So we go back into the investigation on January 9th, 2020. So the investigation at this point has been going on for quite a while. We got the notations above that talking about the phone call. I'll go ahead and read the officer's notes just in case you guys aren't able to see it. The officer notations are: it is important to note that from January 1st, 2016 to January 3rd, 2020, Breonna Taylor's phone number, redacted, was called 48 times from jail. Unfortunately, several of the calls are no longer available to listen to, and when the number is called from booking, it does not provide an inmate's name. However, once the inmate is booked and assigned to a dormitory, the system is able to track the inmate that is making the call. So, this guy was calling from jail, and if you're not booked in jail, you get a right to a free phone call. Apparently this guy was, for whatever reason, given the right to make 48. But you get to make a phone call, get one call for free. But it doesn't track who you are because you're not in the system to track. Whenever they call from the facility, they have to put their DOC number in there, which is generally assigned to them at the county jail. And then if they go to prison, they are given a different DOC number. I think in the county jail, it's a different. I don't think it's called a DOC number. I think it's called something else. Possibly. I've never worked in the jail, so I can't tell you. I've only been in the prison systems as far as that stuff goes. So, but basically, once you go into prison, you're given a permanent DOC number, and that number follows you around. So without that, you just pick up the phone that they have that you can make a free call, and the system doesn't know who you are, but okay. So anyway, that's why they don't have a name for who called. Now, they don't keep the phone calls forever, so that's why this officer wasn't able to pull up the other calls, or at least most likely that's why. So, in the time frame referenced above, Jamarcus Glover called Breonna Taylor 26 times from his dormitory, and a male by the name of Curtis Palm called Breonna Taylor 7 times from his dormitory. Now, there is a possibility that it was actually Jamarcus using this Curtis Palm's information to call. That happens quite a bit. They can get in trouble for it, but it does happen. Has a conviction for possession of a controlled substance, cocaine, as well as a history of other felony convictions per CourtNet. So, as of January 9th, 2020, they had already, the PBI had already been doing their surveillance and whatnot. They did the poll camera numerous times. So that is something that's common. Now, right here, you'll see where they give out the address and they say appears to be a trap house, which is what I explained at the beginning, that they do call it a trap house. And of course, they put down here where drugs are sold to give a kind of a context as to what a trap house is. And the suppliers of the narcotics for the trap house were Jamarcus Glover and Adrian Walker. PBI detectives observed through their surveillance that when the narcotics being dealt from blah 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 were low, minimal pedestrian and vehicle traffic, Jamarcus Glover or Adam Walker would show up operating a red 2017 Dodge Charger, which is the same Dodge Charger that they ultimately put a GPS tracking device on. So we're going to keep going and appear to re-up the trap house. Both individuals had been observed either entering or exiting, blah blah blah, or dropping suspected narcotics near the sidewalk between the vacant house at blah blah blah. Having to omit these addresses is becoming annoying. Once they left the area, pedestrian and vehicle traffic resumed to normal. So this is kind of the lifestyle that this girl had gotten herself into. Now, I'm not going to say that this is the lifestyle that she was forced into. She could have walked away from this at any point. There's a lot of angles that you can go with something like this. She could have walked away from this at any point. Of course, being that she has a murder investigation going on at the time, as of January 9th, 2020, which is where all this stems, and of course now they're investigating the drugs and all this stuff. She's probably past that point of being able to just walk away. But she could have helped herself out if she did. So it shows here that detectives did attempt to follow the vehicle to further the investigation into Jamarcus Glover and Adrian Walker's criminal enterprise. So at this point, they're just investigating the whole trap house and whatnot. So they're just looking at the drug stuff. PBI detectives had a different time following the vehicle as the operator was conducted. heat checks by driving around the same city block twice, using evasive maneuvers by making abrupt turns and unsafe lane changes. That's a common thing that you'll see people that deal drugs will do. They don't just go straight to their house. They will make erratic turns, things of that nature. That way, if there is an officer tailing them, the hope is that they will lose the officer. Now, it's a stupid thing that they do because usually by this point, officers know where you live. So, hey, if you're doing drugs and you do this stuff where you're doing heat checks, I'm going to tell you now, they know where you live. You're wasting your time. So, we go into January 10th of 2020. LMPD's tech unit installed a GPS tracking device on the red 2017 Dodge Charger. License plate number from 1/12/2020 to 1/31/2020. The data from the GPS tracking device shows that the vehicle went to blah 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 6 times on 1/12/2020, 1/14/2020, 1/16/2020, 1/20/2020, 1/26/2020, and 1/31/2020. See attached map. Which is where we get into this. Now, this map here is, we're just going to call them ping points, just for simplicity reasons. This is all the places that the vehicle has gone to. Now, you'll see that there's different places up here throughout the little map here. Not too many stops until you get to this one little section up on the right-hand side over here. It frequents that area quite a bit. This is from 1/16/2020. PBI detectives observed Jamarcus Glover operating the red 2017 Dodge Charger. Pull up, park in front of blah blah blah. PBI detectives then observed Jamarcus Glover walk directly into apartment number 4. After a short period of time, Jamarcus Glover was observed exiting the apartment with a suspected USPS package in his right hand. Detective Kelly Goodlet was able to take photographs. See attached. Jamarcus Glover then got into the 2017 Dodge Charger and drove straight to blah blah blah. Through physical surveillance, PBI detectives had observed numerous short stays, both pedestrian and vehicle, at blah blah blah, as well as Jamarcus Glover and his associates come and go from that location. PBI detectives believe that yada yada yada. So this is the photographs. You can see the 2017 Dodge Charger. You can see that Jamarcus Glover going into the apartment. And it looks like he's getting back into the vehicle in this last photo. So this is what they do. This is how detectives work. Sounds a lot like journalism. Actually, they get way more entertainment than they do. So at this point, we are now going into February. So this investigation was no light investigation. I guess it's pretty much the rundown on it. This department was really after these people. But hey, you have a guy that was murdered in a rental car. You have a trap house. You got 2 individuals who are under investigation for operating a trap house. So, for Breonna Taylor, if she wasn't directly involved in this, which is kind of hard to believe being that she lived in this house, she was way over her head on this stuff. This is some shit that she really should not have been involved in. And like I said, she should have gotten out. And I will stand by that. I did mention that I'm probably going to piss off a lot of BLM people with this video, right? Yeah. So, We keep going through here. We got approximately 14:27 hours. That is 2:27 p.m. For those of you that are not familiar with military time, PBI detectives observed through the pole camera, which is what these photographs on the bottom are. Jamarcus Glover operating a black Dodge Charger pull up in front of the address and go inside the residence. I got tired of saying blah blah blah. The vehicle is registered to Breonna Taylor. Alright, so now we know that she is associated in some capacity to the things going on. Even if that capacity is lending her vehicle out. Unfortunately, her vehicle is being used for criminal activities, so hate to break it to you, that's not good for her. Alright, that's in Louisville, Kentucky at approximately 14:30 hours. PBI detectives observed Breonna Taylor get out of the passenger side of the vehicle. So now she's with him, okay? And look around for a few seconds before she got back into the vehicle. I'll tell you right now, that behavior right there would be very suspicious. Any officer would tell you that. Somebody gets out of the vehicle, especially when there's an investigation into narcotics, and we still have Fernandez, who was shot in the car that Breonna Taylor had rented. So we gotta keep that in mind. She gets out of the vehicle and she's looking around. There's a good possibility she's actually looking to see if there's any police. Like I said, she got in way over her head on this crap. So, back to where I was at approximately 14:32 hours, PBI detectives observed Jamarcus Glover exit the address and get back into the vehicle, and then the vehicle pulled off eastbound on Elliott Avenue. Now, under the photos, they have the notation. It is important to note that PBI detectives have observed on the pole camera Breonna Taylor's black Dodge Charger pull up in front of yada 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 numerous times at varying hours of the day and night. But what they have here are just the photographs of the day. They don't have the photographs of nighttime. So we got what looks like an image taken from a video. It's unknown where this video is. This is probably in a internal video, so it's probably on some police computer somewhere. So we're now in 214. Like I said, we're going to kind of skip through a lot of this because there's still a lot of stuff to go over as far as this whole thing goes, and we're already 33 minutes into this video. This video is going to take a while to upload as it is, so we're just going to go ahead and go through here. So this is, I guess, talking about a search warrant. We got the notation at the bottom. It is important to note that PBI detectives had a signed search warrant for the address, but due to the OIS and limited resources available, the warrant was unable to be served. So that is from 3/13/2020. Now on 3/13/2020, looks like we got jail phone calls. So this is another call record. So looks like we got a pretty lengthy call here. We're just going to skip through the phone call. Alright, so let's see. So what we have right here is talking about somebody knocked on the door, but he didn't answer, didn't know who it was. They asked who it is, but nobody say nothing. Okay, that's just him, I guess, talking. Still part of the all of this is actually a phone call. So I'll tell you right now, I've spent a lot of time back in, I guess around 2013, 2012, somewhere around there. I can't count how many of these transcripts I've looked at or how many audio recordings I've listened to. It's a pain in the butt. I don't like it. One of the reasons we're skipping through a lot of this. So we've got more phone calls. A lot of phone calls. Like I said, I'm going to put the link on the description if you guys want to go through all this stuff and read this for yourselves. So now we are on 4/2/2020. PBI detectives executed a search warrant of Jamarcus Glover, Rayshawn Lee, Alicia Jones, and Demarius Bowman's cell phones that were seized on 3/13/2020. See attached. Jamarcus Glover's cell phone had evidence of narcotics trafficking as well as an association with Breonna Taylor. Screenshot of an AT&T bill paid with her name on it. Rayshawn Lee's cell phone had evidence of narcotics trafficking from yada yada yada. So now we go into 4/22/2020. So PBI detectives executed a warrant and an order to vacate OTV at the address. Shortly before the warrant was executed, Jamarcus Glover, Rayshawn Lee, and Demarius Bowman were all seen leaving the residence in their respective vehicles. When the warrant was executed, Anthony Taylor II was inside the residence and attempted to flee out the back of the residence. Mr. Taylor was apprehended in the alley behind the residence. Search of the residence yielded another significant amount of suspected crack cocaine, a large bag of suspected MDMA, marijuana, and associated drug paraphernalia, indicative of narcotics trafficking. 80-20-024349. Yeah. That's a heck of a lot of crap. So we're just gonna skim through all that. That's just observing a warrant, yada yada yada. I'm kind of curious if these documents go into the night where Breonna Taylor had actually lost her life. So we're now on 4/24/2020. Got more jail phone calls. Gotta love these phone calls. It's all right. Now we're in 5/12/2020. Breonna Taylor's family civil attorney, Sam Whatever, stated in an article published by the Courier Journal that Miss Taylor and Glover had dated 2 years ago and maintained a passive friendship. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it didn't look very passive on one of the phone calls where they said, I love you too. I don't think that's a passive friendship. I'm sorry. I mean, that'd be a really interesting friendship if that's what it was. Breonna Taylor's family civil attorney, Sam Whatever, not even going to try to pronounce this guy's last name, stated in an article published by ABC News that Miss Taylor was still friendly and she accepted packaged for him. I think the officer meant packages for him at her house. So I'm going to guess that these were not exactly legal packages. Now they got a hyperlink here, and that's probably to the article. That's what it looks like. It's to the article that's discussing that. And then of course we're into 5/16/2020. So they didn't go into the actual night, or at least that document hasn't been released, it looks like. Or at least it wasn't released with these documents. This is just talking of, if you don't know, anytime the media discusses a case like this, especially one that's open, you can guarantee the department's logging that. That's what all this here is. Courier Journal published an article, yada yada yada. The department's recording all of these journalists that are doing that. That's just, even from the inside, I can't tell you why they do it. They just do. A lot of it they claim for accountability, but it really just boils down to what I think is just to keep a record of who's talking about it. So, and of course, we're at the last document. So, but it's like I said, it doesn't have it in here, but I'm sure the document's out there somewhere. If not, I'm going to be looking for it. But they do say that this guy had shot an officer in the leg, and then that's when they returned fire, and unfortunately, Breonna Taylor lost her life as a result of that. Like I said, it's an unfortunate situation, but it is something that the officers were trained to do. It is something that they were justified in doing. It's just unfortunate that they hit the wrong person. But from what it looks like from these documents, this girl got herself into some pretty deep shit that... I think, yeah, she could have gotten out of it at any time. But I think in a lot of ways, I think she may have been too deep in. It's really hard to know what was going through her mind during all of this. But I'm going to leave these in the description below so you guys can review them for yourselves. Like I said, I kind of skipped through a lot of it because it's long enough just going through it. We're at 41 minutes. Just with me skipping a lot of the phone calls and stuff. So if you guys want to take a look at it, check out the description below. I'm going to be checking more into it just to see what was going on, see if any new information comes out. So I'll try to keep you guys up to date on that. So until next time, see ya.